You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Green Gab Podcast, a place to gab with people rocking it in green. Green homes, green living, green companies. Join Marla Esser-Close, the green home coach and author of Living Green Effortlessly, Simple Choices to a Better Home, and Tony Pratt, the Director of Builder Relations at The Sound Room. Here are your hosts, Marla and Tony.
Marla Esser-Close, the green home coach, back on the Green Gab with
Tony Pratt from The Sound Room. Hi, Marla.
Hey.
Feels
Hi.
like forever since we've been here.
Well, it's been 2-3 months.
It's been a while.
Almost 3 months, I guess.
We've been all over the place, too, since then.
Oh, my gosh. So we're recording this in February of 2017, just to give some perspective. And we recorded before Thanksgiving last time.
Yep.
We've had some big things happen since then,
You've had
haven't
some
we?
huge things happen.
Well,
Congratulations, by the way.
if anybody noticed, my name has changed. I got married. Thank you.
Somebody must be listening.
My honey, Scott. Yeah.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, Scott. So we got married in November, and I guess the week after we were last recording, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's about right. I think we got the last round of recordings done just because you were going to be gone.
Was that it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, blame it on me.
No. You had that going on. I've been in Dallas.
Wait, we were at the Builder Show.
We were at the Builder Show. I got to go to Phoenix for the Phoenix Open.
Fun. What did you think of the Builder Show? I'm going to backtrack.
Okay, it was okay. I was not a big fan of Orlando compared
So
to...
explain why that matters
All right.
to our audience here.
So there's only really two markets that can handle the International Builder Show as far as conventions, and it's either Orlando or Las Vegas. Now, they keep moving it back and forth because it's on two separate parts of the country, and you
Right.
get two unique sets of customers that come down there and visit. When it's in Vegas, it's easy to entertain. It's easy to go out and meet with clients. It's easy to grab dinner and just kind of unwind. Granted, there's other things that allow you to get into trouble, but every hotel, it seems, has 8 restaurants. And if you don't like those choices, you walk out the door and right next door is another 8 restaurants. And on the other side of you is another 8 restaurants, and on and on and on. Orlando was a bit of a mess.
It's a mess.
Traffic was horrible.
Yeah.
There were not as many choices for evenings out as there are in Vegas. And I just felt, as far as entertaining, which is a critical part of my business, I did not get the bang for the buck that I would have gotten elsewhere. It was harder.
So I'm going to pull a segue here because today's topic is going to be talking about regional materials. Here's kind of case in point. If you kind of think of transportation and available resources as the equivalent of materials in a home, what we encountered was too many materials and resources in Orlando where we were jammed up and we couldn't get around. We actually stayed right next to the convention center, and it cost us a lot more money. And this is where I'm going to make a segue. But it was so well worth it because we could walk everywhere we needed to go. And I didn't get caught up in traffic. And fortunately, most of our events, there was only one of our events that we had to really get off site for. But everything else was close enough that we could walk. Even getting in an Uber in Orlando was impossible because the Ubers got stuck in traffic as well.
Well, not only that, you had the lines waiting
Yeah.
for the Ubers.
Yeah.
Most people grabbed taxis,
Yeah.
and the taxi line, you'd look over and there's 50, 60 people waiting for a taxi. Good luck with that.
So if you equate that to materials for a home, which is what we're going to talk about today, thinking about where stuff comes from and the proximity is well worth a thought. It may cost you a little bit more, but it may get rid of a whole lot of other issues that could come about when you're building a home, remodeling a home, or a building.
Well, it's like everything else, though. It's a balance.
It is a
Yes,
balance.
maybe it costs you a little bit more for the product, but then again, what about the transportation cost?
Right. And you know this?
What about the time delay?
How many of us think about transportation costs? And so many of the costs are buried, or they're subsidized, or there's some other way, and we don't necessarily see the true costs.
Right.
So this emphasis, and I think this is probably one of the intents of this practice, to encourage people to use regional materials. If you think about it, it makes so much sense because you want to support your local community. Why do all of
Absolutely.
us shop small? to support our local community.
Well, it keeps the dollars in the community.
Right. So wouldn't the same thing apply to materials? Wouldn't you want to give a little extra pat on the back for people that are using materials from around where the house is situated, where things are located?
Right.
I love it because I also love keeping my neighbors and my community in business. Having just moved to a new city, I'm having to figure everything out again.
Oh, yeah. You're starting over.
Oh, my gosh.
Economically.
Yeah. Oh, just getting my banks moved over.
You told me about that.
Oh,
Bit of a
that's-
nightmare.
Yeah. And part of it's because my life was too confusing. So we've been trying to simplify as well. Thank goodness. But you don't necessarily think about it. So one of the key things I wanted to do, I have a great relationship with a banker here in the St. Louis area. And I've kept that bank as well because I still do a little bit with them. But I wanted to find a bank. I had a need for a business banker that could go anywhere in the country because of the mobility of our business. So I did end up choosing a national banker for that one but I found a local person in the branch that would work with me.
Oh, well, that's nice. Best
And
of both
she's
worlds.
been amazing because she's helped get all kinds of things for me because of the weirdness of my situation. But then I also wanted to build a relationship with another bank that was more regional or community-based. And my mom introduced me to a banker she's used for many, many years. So now I have somebody else, that I have a relationship with the bank and some of the people that are higher up, because at a national bank, people get promoted and moved out.
Right.
So that regional influence, that community influence really does make a difference. And it's not just for relationships.
It's for everything.
Yeah. I mean, look at your business. How much of it is based upon you being there, you being local, you being regional?
Oh, it all is. I take that back.
Much of it is.
The vast majority of it is. I mean, we do jobs. Well, we just had a group come back from Hawaii again last week, wrapping up that job we did out
that
there.
big one, yeah.
Yeah. We do jobs in Hawaii every once in a while. We go down to Florida every once in a while. So we'll go to other states. Still, the vast majority of the work we do is within the metropolitan area.
So you doing a job in Hawaii is the equivalent of me ordering a material from Hawaii.
Absolutely.
Just in reverse. So when you get to Hawaii, you have to figure out where to get wiring and where to get, or do you take all that
All right,
with
so-
you? Because if you take it with you, you've got all the additional transportation
All right, so
costs.
it depends. Now, like the Hawaii job, they hired a local contractor out there to wire the house.
Okay.
All right, so all that labor was done there. When it came time for the product was bought and it was shipped straight to Hawaii.
Because of the quality
Well,
needs?
we spec'd out the product that the homeowner wanted, all right? So instead of them shipping it to St. Louis, because it wouldn't come from here, it comes from,
Right,
these
somewhere else.
multinational electronics manufacturers, they would just ship it straight to the Hawaii location. So in reality, the things that we need specifically that we were supplying, we put on a container, sent it off, and then we flew our guys out there.
So do you add, and I'm asking questions about the business, but
Oh, no.
I'm hoping that y'all add in the transportation
Oh,
costs.
absolutely.
So for somebody in Hawaii to hire you means that they really love your work because they're willing to pay that extra premium.
No. In this case, it was a customer of ours who bought a house out in Hawaii.
So they already knew your work here.
They knew our work here,
Gotcha.
but it was $60,000 cheaper to hire us in St. Louis, fly us out there, than it was to have the local people do it.
Even with transporting all
Even
the materials?
with transportation, even with per diem of putting up our guys in hotels week at a time. So all of that was factored in.
Okay,
And-
so that's kind of the flip side of what can happen with regional,
Yes.
looking for regional materials is you've got to take the cost into account. So balance is
It's all
definitely
about
worth
balances.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
whenever we go out of town, that's part of the equation of what is
As
the
it should
cost
be.
to bring us down there.
Yeah.
And in reality, sometimes it is less expensive. For a while out on the coast in California, they were bringing in attorneys from the Midwest,
I'd heard that.
CPAs from the Midwest,
Yeah.
because their billable rate per hour was less expensive than what was going on in the coast.
Yep.
And then by the time you factored in housing, per diems, all that, it still was cheaper.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's all has to be part of that equation.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break here in a moment. When we come back, we're going to take this whole concept and we're going to flip it into regional materials and talk about what kinds of materials you might look for, how it can work in a home when you're remodeling or building, and how you might get started. So we'll be right back, folks.
Excellent.
24 Legacy features a new hero, a new day, a completely new cast, but also tons of new 24 fans. It's time to participate with all of them over at 24legacyfans.com. That's 24legacyfans.com.
Thought about a career in voiceover? Need a great, cost-effective on-hold message for your organization or business? Don't know where to start? Check out The Voice Farm, your one-stop shop for voiceover needs. Check it out now by accessing The Voice Farm at voicefarmers.com and see what difference can be made with a company that is truly outside the box. From the Voice Box, voicefarmers.com. That's voicefarmers.com.
Wouldn't it be cool if your advertising could last forever? It can with perpetual advertising. Here's how it works. Magazine, radio, and television ads are efforts that people might see or hear once, and then they're lost forever. Perpetual advertising provides you with the chance for repeat exposure and replayability weeks, months, even years after it's originally inserted inside a podcast. So even after your advertising is included in a podcast years ago, those efforts are still impactful, providing you with true return on investment. Real impact, thanks to perpetual advertising. Are you ready to change the way you and your company or organization advertises? Find out more and launch a unique perpetual advertising effort right now by visiting twoguystalking.com/sponsors.
Hey, Marla and Tony, gabbing on the Green Gab today. I love where we're going with this whole conversation about something that sounds really techy, regional materials.
Well, I guess to the average person, it would sound that way, but in reality, it really isn't. It's about making smart choices.
It's kind of like buying local,
decisions,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, we're on live. We're on Facebook Live. So hey to our Facebook Live listeners and viewers.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Kind of fun to give everybody a behind-the-scenes peek every now and then. And I really wanted to talk about this whole idea of regional materials gets talked about inside of the green home certification programs, right?
Yes.
So let me get a little techy.
It's required.
Well, it's one of the practices.
If you want to get the points for it.
Right. But I wanted to read National Green Building Standard, which comes through the National Association of Home Builders, is the one we work with the most.
Okay.
And I wanted to read their description of regional materials. So if y'all will bear with me for a minute, I don't like to do this often, but I wanted to make sure everybody technically understood the technical definition.
Right.
And then we're going to do our thing with it, okay, which is a lot more fun. But think buy local and you kind of get the idea, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And not just buying local, but made local or local-ish.
Local source.
Local-ish. So anyway, here's the technical definition of a regional material for a green home being built to certification standards. Material that originates, is produced, grows naturally, or occurs naturally within 500 miles of the construction site if transported by truck, or 1,500 miles of the construction site if transported for not less than 80% of the total distance by rail or water. So if something was coming in by railroad or water, they could do the last bit by truck. Products that are assembled or produced from multiple raw materials are considered regional materials if the weighted average, by weight or volume, of the distance the raw materials has been transported meets the distance criteria. So if you've got something that is made from products, like it takes 4 components or 4 materials,
right,
and all of those are from within 500 miles and shipped by truck, it still qualifies. So, number one, most companies will tell you if they meet this criteria pretty easily because they want you to know about it. Yeah, they want you to know.
They're so used to it by now.
But here's the other thing, is that every part of the country is going to have different local regional materials.
Oh, absolutely.
So 500 miles, it's 472 miles from my old condo in St. Louis to my new house in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. So anything between here and there is fair game.
Yeah.
So that means that we can take up most of the state of Missouri and a good bit of the state of Oklahoma.
Basically, you could put a pin in St. Louis, do an exercise of a compass on a map.
Yep. And draw a circle.
Draw a circle within a 500-mile radius. Anything from that distance would be fair game.
So in St. Louis, we see a lot of hardwood that's local because we have a lot of managed forests in Missouri. We see products like concrete that can be made locally because they're made from local
A lot
cement
of sand
product.
and a lot of sand.
There's a lot of sand.
Huge
So that we
amount of
might even
sand.
run into glass products that are made locally or regionally. In Oklahoma City, we have a lot of clay. Guess what we source regionally and locally?
Brick.
A lot of brick.
Well, same thing with
Yeah.
Missouri. There's a lot of clay.
Yeah, you got to come down to Oklahoma City and see me because it's like red dirt.
Kind of like Georgia.
Redder.
Wow.
Like when I wore white when I was a kid, if I fell down, Mom just cut it off because it was gone.
Wow.
That red. It didn't
No
come out.
cleaning that.
No cleaning. So let's see, what other kind of products do we see? A lot of times things made from renewable materials like biologic, like
Okay.
a plant-based material, may also be regional or local. And then also you get a double whammy because it may also be a renewable resource.
There you go.
This is one big reason, by the way, that bamboo got such a conversation started for so long is because bamboo is rapidly renewable because it's basically a
Right.
big grass and it grows like crazy. But we had to transport it from China or other parts of Asia, and so there's a lot of transportation costs wrapped up in it.
Yeah, it did not make sense in the middle of the country.
Right.
Maybe it makes sense on the West Coast still, but there is still a large transportation
Right.
piece that you have to factor into bamboo.
So I love cork just because it's super comfortable. I have a knee issue, and so cork is super comfortable for me to walk on. But cork typically comes from Europe. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, I kind of got to balance that if that makes sense or not. To my knowledge, we don't have a huge amount of cork in the United States.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
So again, the whole idea is back 150, 200 years ago when people were settling the western, any part outside of urban areas in the United States that were being settled, you built with what was on hand.
Absolutely.
So we saw all kinds of houses then. We saw earth houses, we saw sod houses, we saw log houses.
It's basically what was in your backyard.
Yeah. Or
Is what you built your
picked a
house on.
backyard according to materials and resources.
Right.
But you think about, why did Eskimos build out of ice?
It's what they had.
Yeah. So now with modern transportation and modern communication, we have this beautiful luxury of being able to pull materials in from anywhere. Yet, does that always make sense?
That's where you have to look at what your needs are
Yeah.
and balance them with costs, environmental impact, you name it.
And your priorities.
And the priorities,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Your priorities. So, for instance, let's say it was a really high priority to you to have something that had no chemicals in it, toxin-free. Well, first thing you might want to do is look around and see if there's something that grows or is sourced or is produced locally.
Right.
And then you're getting a double. So you're taking off on two categories. And if we all put a little more thought into our choices, a little more thought into those decisions, then we can bring that to our own homes, and that may align with our own personal values. And I think most of us, that may not be our first priority, but I think most of us do want to support the community and the area around us. That makes sense.
Well, absolutely, especially in construction, because think about it. Not a lot of national builders are in our market. Why?
Not.
Because we like local builders. We like local
That's true.
companies. Now, granted, there's a couple that are here and they're doing very well, but they will never really be the true change agents in the market because the minute they do that, there's a possible backlash of, well, that's not how we do it in St. Louis.
That's an interesting thought because Oklahoma City is very similar in that we have a lot
Yeah.
of local builders, and the two biggest home builders in Oklahoma are both, or at least the two I'm aware of, are both local Oklahoma builders. And there's a handful of the national companies in, but like you said, not a lot. That's a topic we might think of for another podcast is what happens with national builders? Where are they exerting their change? Because they're
Oh, it's-
driving some trends.
They are driving some trends. There was an interesting discussion that was going on a few years ago about the national builders that were trying to come in here versus the labor market. And for those of you that are not familiar with St. Louis in construction is a heavily unionized labor market. Like they talked about this morning,
But didn't we just pass right to work?
it does not matter.
It doesn't? Okay.
No, that does not matter.
Okay.
I mean, in reality,
Local labor.
local labor is, if you look at a carpenter, somebody that's going to frame a house, I don't care if there's right to work or not.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get the guy from?
Yeah.
The carpenters union, right? To keep them, it's going to require higher pay.
So,
But anyway, so they had talked about, well, one national builder that was thinking about coming in the market, they had a reputation of being a union buster. But when they realized that they wouldn't be able to do it because if they would have came in here and taken the lead on this, they would have been ostracized by the community of that's not how we do things here.
Yeah.
They would have needed somebody else, one of the big local guys, to do it first. And that wasn't going to happen because most of the big local builders are signatory members with the Carpenters Union.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah, it's fun little conversations that you don't necessarily realize are going on until you listen to a podcast.
When we come back, because believe it or not, we're almost at a break time again. When we come back, let's talk about kind of the process of looking for things in your community and in your region that would help you in your home, whether you're remodeling, just adding some things to your house or replacing some things. How can you start, and how can you keep this two-way relationship going between you and the community with your home? And for those of you on Facebook Live, we're signing out on Facebook Live, but we'll be back on the podcast in just a few minutes. Thanks.
Looking for a straightforward user interface and a cost-effective, feature-filled multi-track recording software? Call off the search! Mixcraft from Acoustica has exactly what you're looking for. It's time to include reliable audio creation and editing software with real punch into your projects. Check out Mixcraft now over at acoustica.com/Mixcraft and start a new generation of audio creation and editing today.
Everyone knows what identity theft is, right? Well, maybe not. Learn more by listening at scammercast.com.
Hey, podcast fans. Ever wanted to learn sign language? How about learning more about the deaf and hard of hearing culture? Well, the time and effort has come to allow you to do just that. Don't miss the Interpreter's Toolbox podcast from Two Guys Talking. Great sign language vocabulary lessons, contests, stories, and more are waiting for you after you watch this new video podcast. Check out InterpreterToolbox.com for more details and get cash and prizes for your comments now. It's all about life. InterpreterToolbox.com.
Hey, we're back gabbing, talking about what sounds really kind of boring.
No, it's all fun.
Regional materials.
Well,
it sounds really
like
kind of, don't you think it sounds kind of techy?
Not really.
Okay, so what's the basic part of regional materials? Buy
local.
So we got to kind of like boil it down, right?
It's all common sense.
I know. Common sense. Whoa, there's a word.
Common or sense?
Common sense ain't so common anymore.
No, it's not.
I said ain't on purpose. I think I've used that word twice in the last 5 years. It is common sense.
Yeah, it really is. When you think about it.
Why not use what's available? And sometimes, there's always going to be trade-offs on everything we choose for our homes, for our lives, for our transportation, for our clothes, everything.
Sure.
And I know sometimes it's overwhelming, so we just don't want to know. Ignorance is bliss. However, if we can help you, our listeners, understand just a tiny bit more and have a little bit more knowledge to make a decision, a choice that will enhance your life, then we've done what we set out to do.
I would agree with that.
And we want you to keep going.
Yeah.
So this whole idea of quote-unquote buy local or buy regional is just a part of that. And I know part of what we love about it is not only is it quote-unquote a green practice, especially because it reduces transportation, which reduces fuel usage and time and can contribute to cost so that you can spend cost to keep a local community member or a regional community member in business and to create an outlet for what they are producing and what they're making. Because if we don't buy this stuff, they can't keep making it.
Even if an item might cost more for the item itself, what are the associated costs that go with it?
Like labor?
Like labor, transportation. Maybe it costs less to transport, so that gets factored in. Let's talk about time. Maybe the one that comes from the further distance takes a week, whereas the local one takes a day. What's the opportunity cost of not being able to put it in tomorrow versus next week?
And you're scheduling, oh my gosh, and a house is so tightly scheduled as it is.
Absolutely.
I remember a client, he just sparked a memory in me. They had to literally come to a standstill on a home they were building because the cabinets had to be reordered, and guess where they were coming from?
Canada?
China.
China, ooh.
Weeks and weeks and weeks of delay added to that house because the cabinets had been improperly ordered and they weren't close enough to come service their work.
Right.
And it wasn't the builder who made the choice, it was the homeowner, but a very steep cost of that choice.
It's the old adage, time is money.
Yeah.
And on a construction site, that's the perfect example of this. Because if things come to a halt for one contractor, one subcontractor, one trade partner, it could affect the whole production of the home.
So if you're choosing materials and assemblies, things that are made up of multiple products or materials that are regionally or locally made and sourced, I'm going to bet, and I have no evidence to this, folks, none, but I'm going to bet that you're going to get a better opportunity to get those people in to help correct a situation if you need to. Because if they're not across an ocean, they got a bigger stake in the game.
Right.
And their reputation is closer to home because they're not that far away. And chances are they're a smaller outfit. So they're going to have a lot more, I hate to say personal pride, but I can't think of a better word right now. But typically when I'm dealing with smaller companies, it's just a whole different feeling. They want to jump to it. They really care about what they do, and they really are still involved in their mission, and they're not so much, they need to make money to survive and keep the business running, and they want to obviously make a profit, but they're also really concerned about their product doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, there's a culture.
There is a culture.
There's that culture of we're in business to help our customers.
Rather than we're in business to please Wall Street?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't get me started.
You look at a company like ours. We're allowed to do a lot of different things that are very unique for us, whether it's the charitable side of it, whether it's working for the production builder, a remodeler, or a custom builder, or the retail side or the repair side, all because we are in business to service the customer. We don't have shareholders that are breathing down our necks. We have David that breathes down our necks, but that's beside the point. That's allowed. But it's the culture. It's the culture of knowing that everybody in the company is a family.
Right.
And we want our customers to feel like an extended part of that family. Those are the people you want to do business with.
I do.
Yeah. Because they're going to do whatever it takes to make sure the job is right. And then if something does get screwed up, they're going to do whatever it takes to fix the job and make sure it's right.
So perhaps as you're beginning to choose things to bring into your home, whether it be with a builder or remodeler working on a new or remodeled home, or if it's just for replacing, go beyond the cost, folks, and think about what's important to you. So I'll share mine. Maybe this will give you an idea. Made in the USA is one of my top priorities.
Sure.
I'm always looking for products that are made here. I look for smaller local companies as much as possible. So for instance, when Scott and I bought the new appliances for our home, we went to a local appliance distributor. Mm-hmm. Granted, they're distributing national products, but we know the people at the store. Matter of fact, we've known them for a long time. We know them well. We're familiar with their service. We're familiar with their culture. We're familiar with how they do business, and we know they will stand behind their word. And if anything needs to be done on our appliances, we know they'll be there for us. And because of our loyalty, they also are able to give us as good a pricing as they can. They give everybody that comes in there as good a pricing as they can because they're really looking for that kind of relationship with their people. Now, they happen to carry an appliance line that I like a lot that's made in the USA and that is committed to a lot of the values that I'm committed to, even though, including green and sustainability and energy efficiency, even though they are a national manufacturer and they do some big work. But they are also committed to building these relationships with these distributors.
Right.
Do they sell in big box stores? Yep, they do. But I couldn't get the exact same thing in the big box store always. Sometimes I could in the local appliance dealer.
There's a reason for that.
Right.
And we see it a lot of times, too, with electronics. You'll have big box and you'll have boutique.
Mm-hmm. So I like that, boutique.
And that's how they brand it. So manufacturers will make certain models to go to the big box, and they'll make certain models that will go to more of the boutique store, and they won't intersect.
Right. And this is particularly to be found, even if you can't buy local or regional in the manufacturer, in the end product, if you buy from somebody local or regional, for instance, let's talk plumbing supply warehouse versus a big box store. The quality you get may not be the same for the plumbing supply house as it is for the big box store.
Right.
And so ask the questions, folks. And we've had some folks on the podcast before talking about that are these kind of businesses, that are local or regional businesses selling nationally acclaimed products. But There is a reason big box stores can sell for less money.
Yes. And that's the dirty little secret. Most times, the quality is much better. It's far superior at the specialty retailer
Correct.
versus the big box.
So for what little money you may pay extra, it's going to pay you off over the long run in less maintenance, less repairs, and less hassle. And I'm huge on hassle. That has a cost factor in my life because
Yes.
hassle takes time and aggravation and, being on the phone, just getting things done. I could go off on a whole rabbit hole on that one. So number one, look for product and materials that are made or sourced, grown locally or regional.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not available to you, look for stores, distributors, outlets that are local or regional, because they will be able to help you identify how you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck with the most service in a personal way. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
What else should we add to that?
I would say 3, know your priorities.
Bingo.
Know your priorities and be able to balance cost of the item versus cost of the externalities, transportation, environmental impact, time,
Labor,
things like that.
repair.
But if you know what your priorities are, chances are you'll have a better experience and a better product in the end.
Couldn't agree with you more. Well, that's a perfect place to wrap this up.
I think we should then.
So check out the podcast notes to get a little bit more info on this, and we'll see if we can come up with a couple of fun sites to get you started down this process. And we hope you will tune in next time to hear us on the Green Gab Podcast. You can find us on greengabpodcast.com, iTunes, or the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network. Here's Tony and Marla signing off. Have a great day.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Green Gab Podcast and for joining us on our own personal Green Odyssey as we change the world one Green Gab podcast at a time. What did you learn about during this episode? Tell us now by visiting our website at greengabpodcast.com. And remember to connect with us via iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter. The links to do all of this are at our website, greengabpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, but more importantly, thanks for rocking it in green.